Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old-timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to today's show. Today we're going to get into one of those wonderful medicinal herbs, which is also an edible wild plant that is often considered a weed, and it is amaranth. And I'm going to include kind of several under this category. I mean, people now grow amaranth ornamentally. Traditionally, it was a very important grain crop for Native Americans and Native South Americans, I guess we'd say, folks around Mexico and up into North America. I don't know, sort of in the European or European American mindset, it's considered just a weed. It's pigweed. It goes by many different names. It's actually quite tasty. The greens are very much like spinach in the spring. Now would be more the time you'd be thinking about harvesting the seeds, but it has many medicinal properties as well. It's one you really need to learn. I have written about this as both a medicinal herb and the medicinal weeds and grasses of the American Southeast. This is where this information is documented. That's the book for that one. I've also been writing a book on foraging and specifically for springtime foraging. So you're going to want to keep an eye out for that book and have it on hand by about March, April next year, even February in many places, because the amaranths will come up, and it's a wonderful spinach-like pot herb. You can eat it raw or in salads, or you can have it cooked, and it's really delicious. And most people, like I say, consider it a weed, spray it with poisons and all that. And if you spot some around in a neighbor's yard, you can probably go get it for free. They'll probably be glad for you to pull it up. And, some people might even pay you to harvest it. It's like dandelions or burdock, many of these wonderful medicinal herbs that are also edible that people consider weeds. If if it was a large property, or perhaps a wealthy older person, or someone just more money than sense is too busy working and dealing with their life to take time to pull weeds, especially if you're a teenager or something, you can get out there. Kids do yard work, actually make a lot of money. But before we get into amaranth, I want to give you the recipe of the day. Now, of course, this comes from my book, The Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking for Homesteaders, Permaculture People, Preppers, and everybody else. I can't remember the exact order. But yeah, my cookbook is by far my most popular book. People love it. And it's the only book where I've ever been walking down the street and someone said, "Hey, aren't you that guy that wrote that book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, will you come autograph it?" "Sure, I will." And that's pretty cool. Actually, I've had to take some time to learn to write legibly so I can do an inscription. That certainly does not come easily for me. I actually practice calligraphy for about 15-20 minutes every morning just to kind of keep my hand in shape and loose and be able to write. And really, just a total side note, if you're interested in writing more legibly, like I said, I started with calligraphy. Probably should have started with the old books on cursive handwriting. They're really good. Get yourself a Spencerian copybook. There are other ones, but I really like those. These were what were used in schools probably up until about 1950. So from around 1800 to about 1950, kids in schools were actually taught handwriting, the beautiful penmanship of someone like a John Hancock, Thomas Jefferson, et cetera, et cetera. That was taught to them in schools. They didn't just do it naturally. And the Spencerian books are really good. So I'm going to start on one of those pretty soon. Um, you got to get a fountain pen and, start copying that beautiful script, and eventually you'll get it. And it's really good. It actually such practices like that. Well, they're somewhat meditative, they're calming to the mind, but they actually develop and keep active portions of the brain that can actually increase IQ in children who learn to write like that, and help prevent dementia and such as people age if they keep writing by hand. And how often do we actually write by hand anymore? I mean, most people don't even take the time to type a decent email. They just, text a bunch of gibberish, with everything abbreviated, and that's not good. It's not good for anybody. I, I was watching a news program last week, and they said according to current test scores, public school students, especially public school students, high school students, two-thirds of high school students in America are essentially illiterate. They cannot read, much less write, competently. I don't know what they're being taught in school. I guess they're being taught that they're not the gender that's indicated by the organs sitting between their legs. I guess they're being taught a lot about climate change and social justice. I have no idea. They're being taught to be racist, in my opinion. When I was a kid, uh, I grew up in a majority minority community in eastern North Carolina most of my childhood. Of course, I was born in the mountains, but most of my childhood I was down in an area which the largest ethnic group was Lumbee Indian, the second largest was black, and then white, and then in the 90s a lot of Mexicans started coming in, and we were taught that everybody was equal, and we all got along really well. I mean, really well. Us kids, we played sports together, we hung out together, we went to each other's houses. I mean, I probably mentioned before, it's like I had 12 black and Lumbee Indian grandmothers. I mean, wherever I went, they knew who I was. They knew who my parents were. They knew who my family was. Well, they knew who my mother was. My grandparents were, at least. And they would yell at me if I was getting in trouble. Absolutely discipline me like I was one of theirs. They would feed me. They would care for me. And I went and, man, we'd play and we'd fight and we'd have a good time. That was because we were taught we were equal. No one ever said uh, that we should regard each other differently because we had different colored skin. And now they do. And I don't understand what they think they're accomplishing with that. Just dividing people and making them hate each other. I mean, they're building up this, whether it's Black Lives Matter or whatever, they're building up all this resentment uh, in minority cultures toward white people. There's going to be a backlash. There's going to be, white people that start hating black people because that's what, every action yields an equal and opposite reaction. If you know, spend all this time on sowing division, eventually you're going to reap what you sow, and it's going to be really, really bad. It already is really, really bad. I mean, you got like that moron kid that went and shot up that black church in South Carolina. Complete loser. Complete. I don't know that there are actually words bad enough to say about him. And of course, where were his parents? Well, you know, as usual, he came from a broken home. He had to find acceptance somewhere, and he found it in some kind of neo-Nazi culture. And then you got the Black Lives Matter folks that go out and burn down cities and kill police officers and loot stores. And this mess is sowing that hatred on all sides. And now um, the Hispanic community is growing by leaps and bounds. It's already larger than the black community, or I'm just saying populations. It's not like there's an actual community. People live all over the place, and you, you got you're going to start seeing a lot of conflict between Hispanics and black folk. At the very least, the gangs and criminal elements are going to be vying for territory and control, and that's not going to be good for anybody. That's not good for anybody. And I don't get it. I don't get it. And I don't even really remember why I went off on this tangent. Oh, yeah, people can't read. Well, as an author, that's incredibly disturbing. So, anyway, yeah, it's a good thing to work on your handwriting. But let's get into the recipe for the week. I'm not actually, I'm not ADD. I cannot imagine if I was like attention deficit, hyperactive, how many subjects would be coming into my mind at once. This is just literally how my brain works. But y'all know that by now. We are at what? Almost 150 shows. That means I've been doing this podcast for about 3 years now, and y'all definitely know that by now. I never stay on topic. Well, anyway, I think this time of year always has me thinking about fishing. It's the end of summer, and this is usually really when the fishing's fantastic. I mean, this is, I guess, a lot of, spring and earlier in the summer, I'm out in the trout streams. I'm using my tin car rod or my fly rod. This is when I really start thinking about freshwater fish, bass and catfish and bluegill and all that. Hot days, a little bit cooler in the evening. I mean, whether it's like when I lived down in Georgia and I go out with friends and we'd stay up all night catfishing, you know. And I actually mean catching catfish, not doing foolish things on the internet. And then fry them up, and I mean, fried fish and beer, and you're in your college years, and I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, really. Um, a wonderful time, actually. And also, it's this time of year when I'm starting to think about seafood. I mean, this is, well, I guess it'll soon be shrimp baiting season in South Carolina. Shrimp can be caught basically any time of year, but September's really, I think, one of the hottest months for shrimp. To catch shrimp, you use a cast net, or unless you're a commercial fisherman with a trawler or something. And so, you go out there and you keep your eye out open and you look where you think there's some shrimp, or maybe you see some feeding activity. You can actually see them in the water sometimes if you have polarized sunglasses on. And you cast your net out there, or you can use a light at night. That's actually a whole lot easier. But you cast your net out there. I enjoy cast netting. It's a skill. I actually enjoy making my own nets. But they don't allow shrimp baiting in North Carolina. In South Carolina, you can buy a license, and what you do is you drive a pole, like basically a piece of PVC pipe or what is it, conduit, down, and you put a bait, which is essentially fish food. And you go out there at night, and you shine your light, and you see a whole bunch of shrimp going around that bait. You throw your net out, and you haul them in, and you can take a year's worth of shrimp in a night. It's fantastic. South Carolina's saltwater fishing regulations, and actually South Carolina's fishing regulations in general are much better than North Carolina. North Carolina is very heavily regulated, which I've mentioned before. But yeah, you're starting to think about shrimp, and you're starting to think about, well, next month, the oyster season, oyster and clam season will open up, and as the water gets a little cooler, it's a good time to catch the bluefish and the redfish and all that. But I'm really, this time of year, I'm thinking about going fishing. And uh, I think one of the greatest assets of my book, Omnivore's Guide, is I tell you how to cook. I give you advice on how to cook nearly every fish, at least every fish I have experience with. So a lot of people are real, hesitant about cooking fish in general, because it's just not something they've done. And they've had fish in a restaurant and they don't know how to cook it at home. Fish is super easy. But the other thing is wild fish, variety of fish. It's intimidating because they know, well, salmon should be cooked one way, and catfish another, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, I tell you how to cook. Let's see, I'll just run through them real quick. All sunfish and panfish. That means bass. That means bluegill. That means, oh, pumpkin seed. But we have so many. They're all in the same family. Okay, they're freshwater, um, delicately flavored, lean white meat fish. You can get a fat bass every now and then, but you're not going to get very many, fat bluegills or crappies or etc. Catfish, trout, salmon, perch. Love perch, by the way. Carp and buffalo, those are two that are really kind of difficult if you don't know what you're doing. Bowfin, that's another one that we get in our rivers and such that cooked the wrong way is awful. Cooked the right way is quite good. Um, let's see, shad and herring. Oh, my favorites. I love shad. Other freshwater fish, and I just put these under a broad category. I mean, bunches of them, right? Saltwater fish. I get into eel, which I love. Bluefish, another favorite. Red drum, my absolute favorite fish of all time. Black drum, fluke and flounder. Our flounder is actually fluke. People call it flounder, or summer flounder. Two different fish, but they're flatfish, and that this category covers everything from flounder and fluke to sole and such as that you might encounter. Um, Speckled trout, or well, the different names. Weakfish is another name for it. Another delicious fish. Black sea bass, Spanish mackerel, king mackerel, spots and croakers, which are a huge deal around North Carolina. Atlantic perch, pompano, permit, striped bass, sheep's head, another all-time favorite. Red snapper, all-time favorite. Grouper, saltwater or gaff top catfish. That's one a lot of people have trouble with. A lot of people just throw them back or even throw them away, which you should never do. Never waste meat at all. Learn to cook it. Same is true of shark. Shark is actually very good meat, but it has to be handled in a very specific way as soon as it is caught. Most people don't know that most of the fish and chips in England is shark meat. It's the dogfish shark. So it's actually very good fish. But whether the saltwater catfish, sharks, skates, and rays, or pufferfish, the blowfish, fishermen actually just throw them away and let them die. I mean, I don't mean throw them back. They will just throw them on the ground or in a trash can, and that is, I you know, I'm not one for regulations, but to me that is a sin. I mean, that should be against the law, in my opinion, but it's definitely immoral to do that. Those fish just have to be handled the right way. A shark needs to be skinned. Skates and rays, same thing. Um, Bluefish, when it's in hot weather, you gotta gut them and bleed them out right away, so because they have an oily meat and a high metabolism. Um, the gaff top or saltwater catfish has poisonous spines on the top, so that's why people don't want to mess with them. And they say, well, they don't cook them right, so they don't know how tasty they can be. They're actually quite good. Pufferfish, yes, it's poisonous, except for there are these two little, they look like what they call chicken tenders. Yeah, two little pieces of meat the size of a chicken tender on either side of the backbone that are not poisonous, at least none I've ever encountered. The skin of a pufferfish is tougher than leather, and I mean, it is ridiculously hard, and people just throw them away. Um, our Atlantic coast, at least in the southeast United States, do not have a high level of toxicity except in the liver, and the liver is so tempting because it looks like foie gras. But if one of them has toxicity, that's where it's going to be in the highest concentration. And I get into other, saltwater and um, terrestrial, what would you call them? Saltwater and freshwater critters, which are going to be your oysters, crabs, lobster. Of course, we have a different lobster than they have up north. Ours don't have the big claws. They're different types of lobster. Absolutely delicious, and very few people eat them. Octopus. That's one that is really great, and no one in North Carolina eats octopus, except me, as far as I know. The same is true of clams. North Carolinians don't eat much clams except as clam strips. We're actually one of the largest clam producers in the country, and all of our clams go up to New England for clam chowder. Well, I love to eat clams. I tell you how to make good clams. They're not like, tough, chewy rubber bands. Oh, oysters, I think I probably said. Of course, frog legs. Mussels, yeah, you can eat. East Coast, southeastern mussels. Just has to be clean water. No, they're not as good as the beautiful blue mussels in cold waters, but they're still very good. There's so many different creatures that live in the water, whether saltwater or freshwater, that are healthy, delicious, fun to catch, and in my book, I tell you how to cook just about every one of them. Now, there are some fish that we don't encounter. I don't give you advice on that. Um, what would be a good example? Whiting. We don't get whiting in southern waters. I buy whiting from a store. It's easy. Whiting and cod is another one I'm never going to catch around here. Super easy to work with. Uh, you can bake them, you can fry them, just easy as can be. Now, pike. Pike would be one that you're going to encounter in northern waters that we don't get here. Sturgeon. We actually have sturgeon, but they're illegal to catch. So I don't get to eat, our wild sturgeon. If you happen to accidentally catch one, you have to put it back immediately or go to jail. Uh, Alligator. North Carolina has the worst regulations on alligator of any southern state. Absolutely love alligator. Um, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, all Texas, Florida, all have alligator seasons, and y'all get to eat more gator than we do. That's for sure. Um, ours is ridiculously restrictive, but very, very, very good meat. So there's more information in this book on cooking fish and related critters than probably any cookbook I am aware of. But my one tip is if you are unfamiliar with a fish, if it's a difficult fish like gar, spots and croakers, very bony, um, very hard to get to the meat. Different ones, okay? Poach it. Poach it in a flavorful broth. You can do like a French court bouillon that's very different from Louisiana style courbillon, or courbillon is, they'll often say it that way. Maybe I'll talk about that next week. But let's say you have a broth and if you have some miscellaneous fish, you don't know how to use it. You don't know the bone structure of this fish. You don't know the fat content of this fish. You don't know if it should be baked or fried. You've never worked with this fish before. But you've got it clean, you've got it gutted and scaled, and it's ready to go, right? Get a pot of water, salt the water. Um, Generally, when you say salted water like this, you're talking, someone would say it should taste like sea salt. That's probably a little too far as the salinity. Just salt it till it tastes like salted water. That's the only advice I'm going to give you on that. Throw in some black peppercorns, teaspoonful, whatever. Um, an onion chopped, a couple cloves of garlic if you want. It's really up to you. Beyond that, I would definitely put in a few bay leaves, a lemon or two sliced. Get a little fancy with it and put in a few sprigs of fennel or dill. Dill is really good. Yeah, I think dill, onion, black pepper, um, onion, and bay leaf. That would be a really good start. Now you could put in other things. You could put in cloves. You could put in thyme. You could put in just Creole seasoning. You could just dump a box of crab oil in there. It's up to your taste. Seriously. But that would be where I'd start, and maybe a little cayenne pepper, maybe a little Creole seasoning. But I don't want to get too fancy. A little white wine, a glass of white wine in that water is going to make a big difference. And really, if you had nothing else except salt and pepper, I guess, onion, a glass of dry vermouth. Vermouth is really good for poaching fish. It gives the exact, not the sweet vermouth, but the dry vermouth. Really, really good. In fact, Julia Child would only use dry vermouth in fish cooking. And there's a reason. It's just absolutely delicious. It's a very good wine, herbed wine that is actually an herbal medicine concoction. It was mentioned by Saint Hildegard as wines uh, infused with wormwood. And she called that vermouth. That's how old this goes. It goes back to at least to the 1000s. And dry vermouth, a good brand, is really actually nice to sip on, and it's medicinal, and it's really good in cooking. But anyway, bring that to just a simmer. Take your fish, and fish will begin to fall apart in the water as soon as it's cooked. So there are special fish spatulas you can get where you just kind of lower it into the water and let it cook and then lift it out. It doesn't fall apart. Or you can take the fish and just wrap it in some cheesecloth. Or you can just drop the fish in there and, take a slotted spoon and take it out in chunks when it's done. You don't have to get fancy with it. That's just really something they would do in a restaurant. So put your fish in. Once it's cooked, take it out. Now you have a nice fish broth. You can turn it into soups if you want to. If you throw it away, that's your business. I would definitely use it for soups. I would actually take all the bones and the head of that fish and return them to the pot, let it simmer, strain everything, season it to taste, and have a wonderful fish soup, especially with some potatoes, some celery put in there, some corn. That's really good. Maybe a little milk or cream, actually, herbs to taste. Yeah, excellent soup. But we just cooked our fish in there, so now let's look at the fish. You flake the meat off the bone. Even the most complex bone structure is easy when the meat just starts falling off the bone. Take it, flake it up, and now mix it with some chopped onion, chopped celery, breadcrumbs, either an egg beaten or mayonnaise if you want to. Uh, Season it up, maybe some Creole seasoning, whatever you like. Form it into patties and fry it and make croquettes. Golden brown, delicious on either side. They're going to be good enough to eat plain. Absolutely fantastic. Um, or you can make a little cocktail sauce, or tartar sauce even. But just take a little prepared horseradish, mix it with ketchup, lemon juice, a dash of Worcestershire sauce, and a little bit of your favorite hot sauce, and it'd be fantastic. Those are fish croquettes or fish patties. You can also mix them with mashed potato and a little breadcrumb. That's a really traditional way to do it as well. But usually it's just my homemade bread that's getting a little stale, just toasted, broken up into chunks, and put together. It's almost like working with stuffing, like you would use at Thanksgiving, right? Stuffing or dressing. But just make it into a patty and fry it up and eat it, and it's absolutely delicious. One of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is inflation's already awful. The price of everything has doubled, and it's getting worse. The rate of inflation, not inflation itself. Now, inflation has been going up month to month, essentially since Joe Biden went into the White House. He is a freaking disaster. Okay, this is a slow motion train wreck, the Biden presidency. But it was starting to kind of even off over the last year. The rate wasn't going up as quickly. Well, he just canceled oil leases in Alaska, and the BRICS nations are using a different. They're going to stop using the U.S. dollar to buy and sell oil, and that means the price of oil just went up dramatically, and inflation's going to start to take off again. And things are going to get tight for everybody. Uh, you know, Play stupid games, get stupid prizes. Vote for a freaking moron, and you will get an economy in which people start getting poor and crime rates go up and things get bad. And, that's Joe Biden. He's a freaking moron. Senile, desiccated, thoroughly corrupt moron. And frankly, if you voted for him, I think you owe me reparations. I think you owe everyone who didn't vote for him reparations because your vote hurt us. Your vote for that moron hurt your neighbors. You think, okay, so Trump made mean tweets. Your vote actually took money out of my pocket. Okay? That's on you. Now, anyway, um, one of the cheapest forms of protein is canned fish. Unfortunately, it's gotten popular and gone up recently. You've probably seen the price of tuna double at the store. I know I have. The price of salmon has doubled. My favorite zest pink salmon, which I love to make, my salmon croquettes and salmon salad and salmon loaf out of, went from $2 a can to $4 a can over the past 3 years. One that has not gone up as dramatically is mackerel. Mackerel is, tuna was not popular at all until about the 1950s, 1960s. It was oily. There was actually a guy that bought a tuna cannery that figured out how to take the oil out. Tuna salad became popular really in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Canned salmon was actually used as dog food um, until, not by everybody, but by a lot of people until, a couple of decades ago. Mackerel was the standard. Mackerel is somewhat of an oily fish like tuna or salmon. It's not unpleasant. It does not have an unpleasant taste, flavor, smell, anything. It's not overly oily. It makes wonderful fish croquettes or patties. Makes a good fish salad. Um, Really very good time to begin to learn to use mackerel. If you go back to any cookbook from the 40s to 20s, anytime around 1900, late 1800s, you're going to see recipe after recipe. You're going to see recipe after recipe for mackerel croquettes or patties, mackerel casseroles made with potatoes and onions and cheese, and you know, mackerel was the canned fish, and it was a fish for the poor, and it really still should be. But I went to a couple of grocery stores last week, and they didn't even have mackerel on the shelf. They had like 15 different kinds of fancy tuna, and they didn't even have just regular old sardines anymore. They had really expensive sardines. They had no mackerel. I went to Piggly Wiggly. They had mackerel, $2 a can. Bumblebee mackerel at that, and really, that's going to be good stuff. Um, there's I was passing through a majority black town, I would say, like a little like Galaxy Food Mart, independent grocer kind of thing. They had canned mackerel and even cheaper. Probably a very good time to stick a few cans back and learn how to use it. Learn how to use it before you need it. Just like with salmon, you can cook it with rice and onions. It's delicious. Um, but also a very good time to learn to use a trot line, learn to use a cast net, learn to build a fish trap, get your non-game fishing skills up because the price of meat is going to go up higher. The price of seafood in the grocery store is going to go up higher. We have abundant freshwater fish and related critters. Our tax dollars pay to keep those fisheries stocked. And it's a very good time to begin to use these survival skills. And that's really one of the major points of my book, The Omnivore's Guide, is teaching you how to cook anything. Anything coming out of the vegetable garden, anything, any kind of meat, any kind of meat. I've got chapters on everything: game, fish, grains, fermented foods, you name it. It's a book to teach you how to become a good home cook. And with a mindset like my grandparents and great grandparents had of don't waste anything, anything that can be eaten, turn it into really good, tasty food. And, they went through the Great Depression and World Wars and with rationing and the Civil War with starvation with this knowledge. And, you know, thanks to the senile, desiccated, thoroughly corrupt moron we have in office, these are skills we need now, like it or not. And if COVID lockdowns come back around, yeah, you're definitely going to have to learn to make do. Remember when we were all desperate to get toilet paper in the house? Well, that could be coming back. So now let's get to herbal medicine. And like I said, this is a really good edible as well, and it's called Amaranth. And today I'm only going to be talking about really the medicinal uses of Amaranth. The edible uses you'll find in my books on food, but this is, of course, a show about herbal medicine. Now, while we think of Amaranth as an American plant because it was so beloved by the natives, it was one of the essential grains, especially for many of the tribes in around Mexico and such. It does have use in European herbal medicine, and it's been used as long as since ancient Egypt. It was an important herb and edible plant for them as well. Now you may know this as pigweed. Um, what else do they call it? Careless weed, Palmer's pigweed, common amaranth, common tumbleweed, which is not the tumbleweed of the deserts. I don't know. I've never heard amaranth called tumbleweed, but it was listed as it. As I said, pigweed, pigweed amaranth, red root amaranth, red root pigweed. It's often called pigweed. Apparently, a lot of people used to grow it to feed to their pigs. That's why. Um, rough pigweed, wild beet amaranth. They're different varieties. There's amaranthus blightum, I guess, palmeri, retroflexus, etc. It's a very common weed, and it really should be growing in your garden. In fact, I think I was reading or watching a program about a guy that he's a permaculture guy. He's a market gardener. He grows a lot for uh, farmers markets and such in New England, and he grows amaranth and sells it as wild spinach, and people line up for it. It's a good kind of in between crop he can put in between other plants. So Dioscorides wrote of amaranth as blitum or blightum, and he believed it to have no medicinal value, but it did believe it had food value. He said it is also eaten as a vegetable, having no use medicinally, which is wrong, and was popular in Egypt, where they called it eclotorip. I'm not even gonna try. All right, but not a lot of writing about it in the ancient Greek texts, and of course, um, it would have been more of a Middle Eastern desert herb than it would have been Mediterranean, Greek, and Roman. But Culpeper was very aware of it. And apparently by 1600s, it had become a popular flower among florists in England. So, yeah, it can grow everywhere. It can grow everywhere from the deserts of Egypt to the damp maritime climate of England. He said it is best known by the florists of our day who call it flower gentle, flower velour, floramore, or velvet flower. He gives a description of it. He says, being a garden flower and well known to everyone that keeps it, I might forbear the description. Yet notwithstanding, because some desire it, I shall give it. Well, it would just confuse to get into Elizabethan English to give a description of a plant. Just look it up. Look up amaranth. Look up pigweed. Look up whatever. Chinopodium, very similar. Both are called podium. Both are called pigweed, and the greens are almost identical. So don't worry too much about identification. He said of the government and virtues that it was under the dominion of Saturn, as Culpeper, of course, would say, and is an excellent qualifier of the unruly actions and passions of Venus, though Mars should also join with her. No idea what he's talking about. Okay, but as far as medicinally, the flowers dried and beaten into a powder stops the terms in women. It can actually reduce menstrual bleeding. So for excessive menstrual bleeding, it could be a good one to have on hand. He said that the ancients found this out by noticing that it has these bright red flowers, and that was part of the signature of what do they call it? Um, it's not coming to me, but anyway, every herbalist knows this. Certain plants, like if it's yellow, it's believed to be good for the liver. If it's red, it's believed to be good for bleeding and such. So it's doctrine of signatures. That's what it is. He says modern writers laugh at them for it, but I wonder in my heart how the virtues of herbs came at first to be known, if it was not by their signatures. The moderns have them in the form of the writings of the ancients, but the ancients had no writings to have them from. But to proceed, the flowers stop all fluxes of blood, whether in a man or a woman, bleeding either by the nose or a wound. There is also a sort of amaranthus which bears a white flower which stops the whites in women, that's vaginal discharge essentially, and the running of the rains in men. And the rains are the kidneys, and is a most singular remedy for the venereal disease. Not sure which venereal disease, but I'm also not sure of an amaranth with a white flower. Could have been a different plant. But then again, I don't claim to have seen every amaranth. I just know the ones I've seen, and the ones like the popular flower garden varieties like Love Lies Bleeding would have those bright red, very large clusters of flowers. Miss Grieve, by 1931, said it had already come to be regarded as a pernicious weed. She said the economic importance was slight and their properties chiefly protein nutrient. Actually, uh, this would be a real survival food. I mean, if you learn to identify amaranth and chimapodium, uh, you're going to have not only free food growing in other people's yards, but you, like the natives did, could utilize it as a very important grain crop as well. And if supply chains go down and we don't have the wheat and everything that we're used to, we're going to have to grow buckwheat, dent corn, and amaranth, chia seeds. Definitely put that in that category. So, as far as the medicinal virtues, she said medicinal actions and uses. Some species have a slightly astringent property, others are diaphoretics and diuretics, and a few are tonics and stimulants. Diaphoretic means it helps with fever, diuretic removes excess fluids, tonic and stimulant, probably to digestion, to the stomach. She said in ancient Greece, amaranth was sacred to the Ephesian Artemis and was supposed to have special healing properties as a symbol of immortality, was used to decorate images of gods and tombs. That's interesting because there's really not a lot written about amaranth, at least among the Greek herbalists that I've found. Well, now Pliny did, yeah, Pliny said a lot more about it than Dioscorides, but anyway, again, more as a food, more as a food. Um, she talks about how it's a favorite garden flower, and she gives several varieties that are more ornamental. And she says often mistaken for orish or goosefoot, which is chenopodium. Uh, very similar. It can be used interchangeably. Very good pot herbs, as they call them, like spinach. And she said in France it was popular as an edible, eaten the same way as spinach. And it is, like I said, it's wild spinach. It's quite good. It's not necessarily related to spinach, like I think chenopodium actually is, but it tastes like it and has a texture like it, and very good. She said in modern herbal medicine, a fluid extract is employed, the dose being 1/2 to 1 drachm, and also a decoction taken in wineglassful doses, which is used externally as an application in ulcerated conditions of the throat and mouth, and as an injection in leukorrhea, and as a wash for ulcers, sores, etc. For its astringency is much recommended in diarrhea, dysentery, and hemorrhages of the bowels. John Kehoe wrote of it in the Irish herbal tradition, the flower stops hemorrhages and all kinds of flow. In King's Medical Dispensatory of 1898, it stated, Amaranth is astringent. The decoction drunk freely is highly recommended in severe menorrhagia and has been found beneficial in diarrhea, dysentery, and hemorrhage of the bowels. It has likewise been used as a local application in ulceration of the mouth and throat, in leukorrhea, and as a wash for foul, indolent ulcers. It is scarcely used in the present day. So even by 1898, people had forgotten how useful it was. Peterson Field Guide tells us that the plant leaf tea is astringent, stops bleeding, used in diarrhea, dysentery, ulcers, intestinal bleeding, reduces swelling, excessive menstrual flow, hemorrhages, and hoarseness. Physician's desk reference for herbal medicine, though, still lists it, and it says the drug made of the plant is said to have an astringent effect, possibly due to the saponins, betacins, and protoalkaloids. There are no studies available on efficacy, but under unproven use, it lists amaranth has been used for diarrhea, ulcers, inflammation of the throat, and mouth. No health hazards or side effects are known in conjunction with proper administration of designated therapeutic dosages. So, amaranth is basically safe. It's common enough to be called a weed. It's edible and nutritious. and it can keep you from bleeding to death or dying from dysentery. I think it's one you probably ought to learn to identify, and once you do, you're going to see it most everywhere. Super easy to grow in the garden. It has no major soil requirements or water requirements. It's weedy and absolutely useful. It was so important to certain tribes that I believe it was the Spanish actually listed it as illegal to grow because they were fighting with these tribes trying to subjugate them. Certainly not a moral or good thing to do. I'm not saying it was the right thing to do, but it was so important to those tribes as a source of nutrition that they made it illegal to grow, much as the U.S. government killed the buffalo to try to starve the Indians into submission. You know, Unfortunate, horrible facts of history. Um, but having grown up with quite a few Native Americans, very much in and part of at least two major tribes most of my life, I can tell you they're not still mad about it like the white woke high school teachers are. In fact, uh, the if you actually go back and read the writings of Sitting Bull and Tecumseh and all these real hero warriors, they actually had a lot of respect for Custer and other ones. I mean, they respected other tough men, great warriors. And but it was, yeah, totally wrong what our government did, especially to the Western tribes. And it's a shameful part of history. But now we all get along just fine. Let me tell you, I've never met a Native American who didn't love the Atlanta Braves. They weren't offended by the name. They love the Braves. They named their own school teams the Braves. They thought it was great. They thought it was an honor to be called a Brave. We all played baseball together, went hunting, fishing together, dated each other's cousins and sisters. I never had a sister, but I dated theirs. Dated a lot of Lumbee girls, Cherokee girls, Catawba. Wonderful people, wonderful, absolutely wonderful people. You know, they have like everybody else, they have their issues, they have their criminal elements, they have their traditions that may seem a little odd, like knife fighting in the cornfield, but uh, just some of the most accepting, kind, generous people on the face of the earth. And you know, we were all, like I said, we were all kids just growing up together, and no one ever thought any different, I guess, until someone decided to until someone tells someone they ought to hate somebody because of the color of their skin. They don't, because that is not a natural human instinct. I don't think it is anyway. Now, I mean, I suppose if you lived in a very isolated community and you were, white and had never seen a black person, or you were black and never seen a white person, yeah, that would be a little shocking. You might be a little scared. I don't know. But you grow up in a place where all these races are just mixed together, and you all grow up together, picking on each other, fighting, telling jokes, playing sports, eating in each other's houses. I always said the only time we were separate was on Sunday morning, because black kids went to black churches, white kids went to white churches, Indian kids went to the Indian churches. There's a whole, well, if you're ever in southeastern North Carolina, you'll see several Native American, Lumbee essentially, Baptist and Methodist churches, and only Indians go there. But that was the only time we were separate. It's one of the things I like about being Catholic. You'll sit on a pew, and there'll be folks of every race from all places on earth, all around you. I mean, white, black, Mexican, Asian. The priest will be from Nigeria or Ireland. I mean, it's the family of God, and we don't separate the way they do in Protestant churches, which is a shame. Everybody ought to be able to be together, especially going to church. But that's my opinion, and I don't feel like getting on that soapbox today. If you're interested in my religious views, I have a whole separate podcast on that. It's called The Uncensored Catholic, and I really let fly on stuff. I don't cuss or anything, but I definitely don't hold back my opinions. I try not to mix that with my herbal medicine. You know who I am and where I'm coming from, but I don't. I think God made the herbs for everybody, and everyone should have access to them. And I don't want to say something that's going to offend somebody over their religious beliefs. It's going to prevent them from having access to herbal medicine. That's something they do in the woke liberal herb schools. They denigrate Christianity to the point that they make it unwelcome for Christians to take their classes. I've been there, seen it, walked out. you know, um, they don't know what they're talking about in terms of history. That's why I wrote my book, The History of Christian Herbal Medicine. They just hate Christians. They're neo-pagans or they're radical homosexuals or whatever, and they just hate Christians, radical feminists, etc. And a lot of times they don't like men very much either, and they make that very clear. And that's one of the main reasons I do what I do and write the books I do, is because I believe everyone should have access to. I mean, if you voted for Biden, I still want you to have access to herbal medicine. See, that's my belief. Meanwhile, if I wear a MAGA cap or something, they're going to start screaming at me and make me leave, because they're actually the intolerant ones. The so-called liberals are not liberal. They're actually quite fascistic. But anyway, and if what I said just offended you, fine. You're welcome to your own opinion. I still want you to have information on herbal medicine, which is why I put out more free, comprehensive information on herbal medicine than anyone else I know of, living or dead. And I only ask that you buy my books if you can afford them. And if not, you listen to my podcast and refer your friends to it. That's how I make my living. And as long as I can make enough money to put food on the table, I can keep giving you all this free information. So, I'm, sorry you have to listen to a few ads on my podcast, but that's what pays for the hosting. There's no such thing as a free lunch, as people say. But I do try to make it as approachable and inexpensive and available to everyone as possible. As possible. That's the way I was taught. The people I learned from were, poor Appalachian, just genuinely humble, common people. And that's the way I want to continue to present this information, to continue to share it with all peoples, whether you like me, hate me, agree with me, disagree with me. That's cool. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to give you this information. And if you can buy one of my books, that's great. I always appreciate it. So anyway, y'all, have a great week. And go fishing. Go fishing. There's nothing better than going fishing, honestly. This has been a passion of mine since I was a child. I'll talk to you next week.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, for your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.